We've come to the end of the Deuteronomistic history, which I'm sure is heartbreaking for most of you, and I believe at this point you've taken a test, unless I've rearranged things since I recorded this. Now we get to move into a different kind of literature altogether. We're going to start with the book of Isaiah, and with Isaiah, we're moving into prophetic literature. Now, just before we do that, I do want to recap where we left off. We left off with the end of Judah, this really heartbreaking scene in which we have Assyria falling to Babylon. That's how we had our cats switch places. So we had Assyria as the primary cat for the longest time. And then Babylon comes in and takes over in 612. This is how the Deuteronomistic history ended. And then Judah fails to be faithful to Babylon, and that's not going to go well because in 3 different exiles, Babylon is going to come in and take the people out of Judah. The primary one that we focused on was the second exile. That's where we really would say the exile proper has begun, because in this exile, Jerusalem, where Yahweh lived, was destroyed, and everything, all hope is kind of lost here. It's a very discouraging time, and this is right around the time where the Deuteronomistic history ends. Now, we've been over this a million times, but I'm just going to leave you with it one more time. We've got the end of the Deuteronomistic history with the people of God living in exile, and we've got this question of where are we now? Well, we're in Babylon. This is bad. This is not where we're supposed to be. The status of the 3 covenants is just totally in flux. We mentioned that we've got the Mosaic covenant present, and that helps explain why we're in exile. And we've also got the Abrahamic covenant and the Davidic covenant, which offer hope to the people in that they may be able to return from exile and restart their lives under Yahweh's rule once again. And so we've got these 2 kind of working in tension. Number 1, we know why we're in exile. Number 2, we have hope that Yahweh will restore us even from exile. So those 2 are kind of in tension. But as far as where we're at with the 3 covenants, we had I talked about the center of that covenant sandwich with Moses, just completely exploding the whole thing. And so the covenant with Abraham, the covenant with Moses, and the covenant with David are all just completely in question by the time we end the Deuteronomistic history. Now, one thing that we have to ask is, well, what's the role of the prophets in all of this historical time period? So what I'm going to walk you through right now is what prophetic literature is. We've seen a type of literature called the law. That's what we looked at when we looked at Deuteronomy and Leviticus. And prophetic literature is not law. It's also not history. With the Deuteronomistic history, we were talking about history, or at least ancient history. And that's not what prophetic literature is. In fact, prophetic literature isn't even narrative. And that's what we've been dealing with for the most part, except for when we've dealt with law. Now we're moving into poetry. Prophetic literature is poetic, and importantly, prophetic literature is a message from God to a human being, and that human being is the spokesperson for God. So one way to look at this is, here's your prophet, and that's hard to see. There's a cloud right here. For lack of a better way of thinking about this, the cloud is going to represent God. So God speaks to a person, and the person reports that to the people of God. That's how prophecy works. And usually prophecy is in poetic form. Today we're going to look at the book of Isaiah. And Isaiah, the literature in Isaiah is unusual. You've read about it already in Banstra, and Banstra suggests to you that there are either 2 Isaiahs or 3 Isaiahs, because Isaiah, the book, deals with either 2, depending on how you look at it, or 3 very different time periods. How we're going to look at it for the purpose of this class is that Isaiah, the book, primarily deals with the time before the exile, right here in the 700s. That's why we've got a star right here. Isaiah deals with the time in the 700s, and then right after the exile has ended. So we've got two primary time periods that we're dealing with in Isaiah. The first time period is in the 700s, and the second time period is in the 500s, after the people of God have returned or are beginning to return from exile. I'll get into that a little bit more with you in our next little lecture, but that's what I want you to have in mind right now. So the whole book of Isaiah deals with two primary time periods. The 700s, when Judah is under the authority of Assyria, and then the 500s, where the people of God who have already been in exile have been allowed to return under a Persian king named Cyrus. So we've had in the 700s all of this trouble with the north and with Assyria, then finally the fall of the south to Babylon. And then we have the return from exile under the Persian king Cyrus. So now Persia is our big cat rather than Babylon. Persia comes in and takes over Babylon. Those are our two primary time periods as we start to think about Isaiah. I'm going to walk you through in the next lecture 4 pivotal moments in Isaiah. Those are what I want you to be familiar with from the prophet Isaiah. So come back for that one.